The first thing that caught Nurse Vellitt's attention was the human's limp. It wasn't the worst she'd seen. Not even close. The deep space medical ward aboard the ULS Halcyn took in species from 27 different systems, most of them with wildly incompatible anatomies and pain responses. But this one was. The human male walked in under his own power, his left leg dragging slightly, jaw clenched tight. His uniform was dusted with something gray and granular, and there was a faint smear of blood on his temple. Vellitt's eyes narrowed, or the equivalent of narrowing, given they were spread across a vertical ridge of her pale blue face. "Sir," she called, stepping forward and gesturing him toward an open pod. "Please sit. You're hurt." The man winced as he complied, but still managed to chuckle as he lowered himself carefully onto the diagnostic bed. "Just banged my leg up a little. That's all. Bit of a tumble. I'll tough it out." "Toughness is not a diagnostic," Vellit said flatly, activating the scanning array above him. "Name?" "Quellin Lorne," he replied, blinking against the soft green light that passed over his body. "Engineer, Deck 6. You fell. Ladder snapped when we were rerouting coolant lines. Dropped maybe 10, 12 feet. Landed wrong. No big deal." The scanner beeped. Vellit turned to the display, eyes flicking across the data. Her translator module hesitated for a second before converting the readout into standard. Extensive bruising, possible fracture in the left tibia, torn ligaments in the ankle, and a hairline crack in the right wrist. "You have 2 skeletal injuries," she said. "And internal bruising. You should not be walking." Quellin grinned despite the sweat beading at his forehead. "Well, I am walking. So that proves something, doesn't it? It proves you are reckless. Or adaptable." Vellit made a sound that, in her language, roughly equated to a sigh. She turned and retrieved a stabilizer brace from the supply drawer, then gently wrapped it around his leg. He stiffened but said nothing. "You need full imaging to confirm the severity of the fracture. I am scheduling you for radio mapping." Quellin glanced around the room. 2 other patients of Firaxi with a dislocated thorax and a thin, translucent operant covered in a rash of shifting colors were being tended to by other nurses. "That necessary? I've got a shift in 5 hours. You will not return to duty today." He looked at her, surprised. "Seriously? You have a fractured leg and a wrist injury. If you continue to walk on it, the fracture may widen. You could damage the internal blood vessels and risk permanent loss of function." Quellin opened his mouth, closed it, then opened it again with a defeated laugh. All right. You win." Vellit did not acknowledge the victory. She pressed a control that summoned a medtech drone, and it hovered into place beside Quellin to begin the deeper scan. He sat back, shoulders tensing as the drone's sensor arms extended. "No sedation?" he asked. "You declined it," Vellit said. He blinked. "Did I?" She stared at him. "Right? Well, maybe keep it close, just in case." The drone hummed to life, and Quellin flinched as it began its imaging cycle. He didn't cry out, but his jaw was tight, and perspiration was starting to soak through his collar. Vellit observed in silence. Human pain tolerance was a known variable among the medical staff, but it was the inconsistency that puzzled her. Some humans screamed for a splinter, others, like this one, made jokes while their bones cracked under their own weight. When the skin finished, the drone chirped and withdrew. Vellit beckoned the display toward her. "Fracture confirmed," she said. "Tibia incomplete break. Right wrist shows a non-displaced fracture. You will require immobilization, possible reduction if swelling increases." Quellin groaned. "So, cast?" "Not a cast. We use compression sleeves and bone stem regeneration, but it will take time. At least 4 weeks for the leg. The wrist, perhaps 3. For weeks? I'll go stir crazy." "You will go nowhere," Vellit replied. "You were fortunate. Had you fallen at a different angle, your femoral artery could have been compromised." "Lucky me," he muttered, looking down at his leg. A pause settled between them. In the background, the operant began to hum softly, a natural response to stress. Vellit adjusted the lighting, dimming the overheads. "I'll notify your section chief," she said. "You'll be assigned to quarters for recovery." "Can I at least go back to grab my datapad?" Quellin asked. I've got some schematics I was working on. You may request retrieval through your supervisor. He groaned again, louder this time. This is worse than boot camp. Vellit turned away to prepare the immobilizers. As she worked, she found herself thinking about the human again, the way he'd limped in, clearly in pain, yet still joked about it. Not dismissively, but with a strange, resigned humor, as if pain were just an expected part of being alive. She returned to him with a gray compression sleeve and gently slid it over his leg, activating the bonding mechanism. It hissed softly as it conformed to his limb. You will feel pressure, she said. He nodded. As the sleeve began to tighten, he clenched the sides of the bed, sucking in a breath through his teeth. Still think you can tough it out? Vellit asked, watching his vitals spike. He gave a strained grin. Nope. Definitely rethinking some life choices. Later that evening, Quellin was transferred to the recovery bay, a quiet wing of the medical ward lined with private pods. He was placed in Unit 6, where a low hum of medical monitors and filtered air kept the room sterile and calm. He lay back, exhausted, the wrist brace now glowing faintly with stimulation pulses. His leg was propped up, elevated to reduce swelling. Vellit entered with a cart of nutrient packs and pain management doses. I've adjusted the dosage based on your scans, she said. You may experience drowsiness. Quellin accepted the injector without complaint this time. Thanks. I'm not trying to win any awards for suffering. Vellit paused. Then why pretend earlier? He looked up at her. Habit, maybe. Where I'm from, complaining doesn't do much. Might as well laugh through it. She considered that. Laughter does not reduce inflammation. No, but it makes the time pass better. She handed him a small packet. This is a stimulant gum. If you feel too groggy, chew half. He took it, nodding. You always this thorough? I have observed that humans often underestimate their injuries. I compensate. A faint smile tugged at his mouth. Well, thanks for compensating. Vellit left him to rest, but her mind lingered on the encounter. Outside the pod, she updated his chart, noting his pain response, compliance, and psychological state. She flagged it for follow-up, not out of concern but curiosity. Humans were inconsistent, yes, but they were also oddly fascinating, especially the ones who laughed while broken. The next morning cycle began with a low chime and the scent of sterilized linens. Quellin Lorne was awake before the lights rose, staring at the curved ceiling of Recovery Pod 6 with the dull, distant expression of someone already bored of his own bones. Nurse Vellit entered precisely at the start of her rotation, carrying a tray stocked with a morning nutrient gel, a flexible diagnostic wand, and a new data slate. Her gait was unhurried. She paused at his bedside, noting the elevated pulse rate still registering on the wall display. You did not sleep adequately, she said without greeting. Quellin blinked slowly. You try sleeping with a leg that buzzes every 5 minutes like a nest of bees learning Morse code. You were offered a sleep assist patch. I thought I could manage. Your assumption was incorrect. I'm getting that a lot lately. Vellit tapped the wand against his wrist brace. The band lit up with a series of soft pulses as it synchronized to her readings. You attempted to stand during the night, she said. 3 times. His mouth twisted. Needed to use the head. Didn't love the idea of that transport capsule zipping me around like cargo. It is designed for patient mobility. You are not cargo. I felt like a bag of groceries with a heartbeat. You will use it again, despite the metaphor. I figured. Vellit placed the data slate on the side table. I have been assigned to monitor your recovery for the next 2 cycles. Your treatment protocols are updated to include assisted mobility drills, nutrient recalibration, and monitored rest intervals. Quellin squinted at her. So I get a babysitter. I am a nurse. Sure, but you're making me do stretches, feeding me goop, and watching if I nap. Vellit didn't blink. That is the definition of nursing. He sighed and reached for the nutrient pack. The gel squelched as he opened it. This stuff always tastes like seaweed and regret? You selected the neutral flavor. That was a mistake. He took a reluctant gulp. Vellit, meanwhile, adjusted the settings on his leg brace. The pressure eased slightly, and the internal hum of the stimulation field shifted pitch. Better, he muttered, surprised. I increased the oscillation frequency. Your muscle fibers were beginning to resist the previous pattern. I didn't even know that could happen. Human tissue adapts quickly. It is a survival trait. He leaned back and stared at the ceiling again. We're pretty good at that. Adaptation doesn't always mean we're smart about it. You are recovering. That is sufficient intelligence. Is it? She turned to face him directly. You are not satisfied with recovery? I'm not satisfied with being told to sit still while the rest of the crew scrambles to patch up a coolant breach I helped cause. You did not mention your role in the incident. Wasn't asked. You were injured by falling equipment. That suggests proximity, not fault. I was the one who overrode the safety interlock to speed up the reroute. Thought I could stabilize the pressure manually. I was wrong. Vellit made a note on the slate. Guilt is not part of your treatment plan. No, but I think it's part of the human condition. She folded her arms. You are not unique in experiencing error. He nodded slowly. Still feels like I let the team down. One of your crewmates has submitted a requisition for your schematics. They were precise enough to be used in the final coolant solution. That startled him. Wait, they actually used them? Yes. They cited your draft as the basis for a successful bypass. He stared at his hands. Ha! You are not as irrelevant as you assumed. Thanks, he said after a pause. That's almost a compliment. Vellit turned to access the pod's control panel. I will return after your first mobility session. A technician will assist you. I thought that was your job. I am not certified for physical therapy support. Only observation. So I get a new alien to meet. Great. Hope they're less sarcastic. I am not sarcastic, right? You're just blunt enough to cut sheet metal. Vellit left without responding. An hour later, a tall, insectoid being with iridescent plating arrived with a mechanical walker. Clicked a greeting that Quellin's translator rendered as greetings. I am Tix, rehabilitation facilitator. Quellin looked the walker over. It resembled two oversized crutches fused with a suspended harness, a rolling base, and what appeared to be a cup holder. Let me guess, he said. This is the deluxe model. It is modified for human bipedals with lower limb constraint. Snazzy. Tix extended a narrow limb. Place your left arm through the sleeve. I will adjust the stabilization gimbal. Quellin slid into the harness with some effort. It lifted him slightly off the bed, transferring pressure away from his leg. A faint buzzing began near his hip. That normal? Yes. It prevents joint locking and promotes blood flow. He took a tentative step. The walker moved with him, gracefully compensating for his imbalance. Okay, he said, surprised. That's actually not bad. You will complete 5 passes around the corridor. Do not exceed the pace of the walker. Wasn't planning on sprinting. Tix accompanied him in silence, observing his gait. Other patients occasionally passed by, most of them alien floating, gliding, or moving in ways that made Quellin feel clunky by comparison. A pair of slender, water-borne Yulari watched him curiously, their translucent fins fluttering in their hydration suits. After the 5th lap, Tix guided him back to the pod. You exceeded acceptable heart rate variance, it said. I haven't walked since yesterday. My heart's just happy to be vertical. You will rest now. Yes, boss? Later that day, Vellit returned. She observed the data from the walker regimen while Quellin lay back with a cold compression wrap over his forehead. You exerted yourself, she said. I moved in a circle 5 times. That's not exactly a triathlon. Your endocrine markers suggest stress. So does being watched like a lab rat? You are not being watched. You are being measured. Comforting. She handed him a small object resembling a flattened oval. This is a focus node. It emits low-frequency harmonics that reduce muscular tension. He held it up. Do I eat it, or? You place it on your sternum. He did so, and it emitted a soft, rhythmic pulse. His eyes widened slightly. That's weirdly soothing. It is used for patients who resist rest. I don't resist rest. I resist being useless. You are not useless. Tell that to my leg. Vellit stepped closer. Your body is healing. That is not useless. That is function. He looked away. I don't like being still. I have noticed. You ever get hurt? She blinked. Yes. During my early training, I was exposed to a neurotoxin that affected my balance cycle. How long were you out? 17 days. He whistled. What did you do with all that time? I studied. I learned the pain response patterns of 6 new species. He chuckled. Of course you did. There is always more to learn. Yeah. Like how to sit still and not lose your mind. You are learning that now. He closed his eyes. Wish I could fast forward. You cannot. But you can choose not to sabotage your own recovery. He let the silence stretch before speaking again. Thanks. For what? For not treating me like I'm fragile. You were injured. Not fragile. Still. It helps. She inclined her head. Then I will continue. That night he slept. No complaints. No buzzing complaints. Just steady, measured breathing. Vellit recorded the change, then dimmed the lights in his pod. Outside, the corridor lights shifted to nighttime hues and the ward quieted to a hum. By the 3rd cycle, Quellin had developed a fond but exasperated relationship with the walker harness, which he had nicknamed Hobbletron in a moment of sleep-deprived inspiration. It had started responding to voice commands the day before, though the engineers swore it wasn't supposed to. Vellit suspected it had more to do with the human's tinkering fingers and less to do with any latent AI quirks. You altered its response matrix, she said as she entered his pod that morning, scanning the walker's newly blinking interface. I optimized it, Quellin replied. He was upright, half suspended in the harness, adjusting a small panel near the base. The default pathing was jerky. I just smoothed the motion curves. You are not permitted to modify medical equipment. Technically, I didn't modify it. I just persuaded it to be better. Vellit stepped closer and deactivated the walker's manual override. Its lights dimmed. Quellin groaned. You are not cleared for engineering tasks, she said, placing a new diagnostic strip on his wrist. You are still under recovery protocol. Can't fix the coolant grid. Can't fix the walker. I'm starting to feel like I'm being punished for surviving a fall. You are being preserved. He glanced at her. You always talk like that? Kind of like a philosopher who moonlights as a drill sergeant. I speak efficiently. You speak like you've read too many technical manuals and decided feelings were an optional attachment. Vellit didn't respond. She studied the readout from the strip. His inflammation had dropped. Bone density was stabilizing. The stim field had accelerated tibial repair by nearly 20% beyond baseline projections. She adjusted the compression sleeve slightly. You will begin unassisted walking trials today, she said. Quellin looked down at his leg. Already? You are healing faster than anticipated. Likely due to your elevated metabolic variance. Possibly also due to stubbornness. See? You're getting better at jokes. I was not joking. By mid-cycle, the walker had been folded and removed. A new technician, a densely furred being from the Krell system named God, stood nearby with a padded support cane in one hand and a portable biometric scanner in the other. Quellin leaned forward on the edge of the bed, bracing himself. You will not be allowed to fall, God said. I'd prefer that. You will also not be allowed to limp excessively. That might be harder. God handed him the cane. It adjusted to his grip immediately, shifting its balance to meet his weight. Quellin eased upright with a sharp intake of breath. Pain level? God asked. Manageable. Like someone squeezing my shin with a vice made of hot rubber. Colorful. Quellin took a cautious step. Then another. The cane supported him with a quiet hiss each time he leaned into it. God circled slowly, observing joint alignment. Your gait is uneven. I broke my leg, not my fashion sense. You will correct it, or it will recondition incorrectly. I know. Heel toe. Same lecture in boot. You were not in boot. You were in a medical rehabilitation bay. Quellin didn't answer. He reached the edge of the corridor and turned, wincing. The swelling had gone down, but every movement still lit up the nerves from ankle to knee. After 3 full passes, he was sweating but upright. God nodded once and recorded the session's data. You may rest. Quellin dropped back onto the bed with a groan, propping his leg back into the elevation sling. Vellit returned as God departed, carrying a new nutrient cartridge and a soft cloth. You perspired excessively, she said, handing him the cloth. Thanks. I'll add sweaty to the list of my current charms. There's no list. I'm working on one. She placed the nutrient cartridge into his dispenser. You will consume the full dose. He eyed it. Is this the one that tastes like fermented algae? It is the one that promotes connective tissue regeneration. Same thing then. He took the cartridge and began sipping. It was thick and vaguely gritty. You show no signs of infection, Vellit said, scanning the sleeve's internal readout. Your blood markers are normalizing. Does that mean I'm getting out of here soon? You will be discharged at the end of the cycle. Quarters-based recovery only. No more pod. You will be monitored remotely. You will not return to engineering duty yet. He paused. At least I'll get to see a window again. This facility has no external viewports. Right? Still, anything's better than these walls. Vellit hesitated. Then she walked to the interface screen and tapped something into the control panel. The wall beside his bed shimmered, then shifted into a live feed projection of the Halcyn's orbital path over the planet below. Quellin blinked. Didn't know you could do that. It is not standard, but you have complied with all treatment requirements. He leaned back and watched pale cloud bands sweep across the planet's surface. That's actually really nice. You will still sleep here tonight. Understood, Nurse Commandant. She turned to leave. Quellin called after her. Hey, Vellit. She paused. I know I've been difficult. You have been human. Well, thanks for not letting me wreck myself worse. You did that on your own. I merely mitigated the result. He laughed under his breath. You ever think about transferring out of medical? No, you'd make a great engineer. She considered that. I prefer patients to power conduits. They are less prone to catastrophic failure. Clearly, you haven't met all the engineers. The next morning, he was discharged from the pod and helped into a small mobility chair. Vellit accompanied him to the lift junction. Neither of them spoke until the lift doors opened and the corridor to the crew quarters came into view. I'll keep up the therapy, he said. Promise. I will be checking. I figured. He hesitated. So, is it weird that I'm going to miss the medbay? Yes. He grinned. Well, I'll try not to visit again anytime soon. Do that. He rolled forward into the corridor, the chair humming softly beneath him. Vellit watched him go, then turned back toward the ward. Another patient in Akron with a fused dorsal spine was waiting in pod 3. She moved toward them without hurry. Quellin, now halfway to his quarters, looked out the corridor viewport and saw the planet turning below a swirl of clouds, shimmering oceans, and unfamiliar landmasses. He took a breath and let it out slowly. His leg ached. His wrist was still stiff, but he was moving forward. And for now, that was enough.